Hi, this is Daniela Wolf with Bestie Life, the podcast, and this is your community to support you through the little and not so little events that make up your day-to-day life. From the I've got this moments to the I just can't moments. We are here to empower all women to find and develop the skills they need to find peace, balance, and the bliss in their busy. Through solo episodes as well as interviews with amazing women who share their journey and their story and how it works for you. I hope you find the inspirations to make you laugh, think, as well as maybe rethink what you thought you knew, and connect as we realize that we are all living similar ups and downs and don't have to do it alone. So excited for you to hear this episode, and thanks so much for joining me today. Hi, this is Daniela Wolf. Today I'm with Andrea Veasey. She hosts a podcast, Open Up and Speak, but I'm going to let Andrea share her story, her business, and everything else. How are you, Andrea? Great to be with you today.
Hey, Daniela, thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. Just so you know, I have not done this before, and I've been hosting my podcast for like 15 months, but I have not ventured out into getting onto anybody else's podcast. So this is really exciting for me. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to get the chance to share your story with my listeners. I loved when we got a chance to kind of pre-chat and connect the other night, and I think your journey is really going to resonate with a lot of women and help them to kind of see the options and the possibilities and the different paths that we all take to get to where we are. So
yeah, I sure hope so. I hope my story can help somebody else because that was the whole purpose of me starting my podcast too. So yeah, my podcast is called Open Up and Speak. And like I said, I started it about 15 months ago. I'm just recently, a few weeks ago, became a certified resiliency life coach. And I'm currently enrolled in some massage therapy courses, and I should hopefully graduate here in the next 9 months as a licensed massage therapist. So got a lot of stuff going on, but my backstory sort of led me to this place. So it was all good in the end.
yeah, can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, at about age 7, my son had a diagnosis of Tourette syndrome. We noticed tics and vocal things and going on that were not, I guess, normal or not what people would expect. So after getting the diagnosis, they just give you a piece of paper and say, here, you can try these medications or, whatever, good luck. And so you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay, well, there's
It's
no.
life-changing. I know we connected on that a little bit with both of our sons having some similar issues. And I think,
Yes, extremely, because you're just so unprepared. Like even though I knew that was going to be the diagnosis, I mean, I knew that was going to be the diagnosis. I had no doubt. I still wasn't like emotionally or mentally prepared to hear it, I guess, like to go
Mhm.
forward with it. Like, okay, what do I do from here? So anyway, we went through that. We went through all of the things that you go through when you have a child that has Tourette syndrome. So we went through he and we bonded a lot during that time because I became sort of like his personal psychologist. I felt like but lots of anxiety. That's kind of what got me into the massage stuff. Was I started learning about techniques to help relax him and doing things myself just from YouTube and watching videos and things. And I just found ways to help him with his anxiety. And so I thought, okay, if I can help somebody with this, maybe this is a path I need to be on. Maybe I need to keep learning. And then fast forward as things started to get better for my son in the teenage years, my daughter, who's a couple of years older than him, started developing an eating disorder. And I don't know if you know much about anorexia and bulimia, but it was kind of life altering for me. It was extremely painful, to
It,
watch somebody suffering by choice almost. Like it felt like it was by choice, even though I understand it probably wasn't now, looking back on it.
but just to see your kids in general dealing with these life-changing situations and illnesses, as well as they both kind of came up not according to plan, kind of out of the blue. And I think that's a lot of what I really found powerful about your story was you took these situations that came up and you found ways to not only manage them, but work with them, grow from them and adapt from them in a way that strengthened you and those around you, because it's never an isolating thing. When one person is dealing with something, everybody's dealing with something.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's definitely a fact. Yeah, I feel like I became a researcher I feel
Yeah,
like I should have written a book or something with all the research that I did.
you
Joined
will.
lots. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Joined lots of support groups, especially, and I did want to say that because I think for anyone that's going through a difficult time in their life, a lot of times when we're going through these really unexpected changes or we're trying to help somebody else who's going through difficult times, we feel so alone, and
Mhm.
we feel like we're the only ones going through that. And it feels so just life altering. I mean, it just feels like everything is shifting and turning upside down sometimes in your world, and it's painful. For the first time in my life at age 40-ish, I developed depression, and that was shocking for me. So some of the things that I did do during those times were I definitely reached out to support groups on Facebook and in other places that I could find. We have a local group here in our community, so I ended up becoming a group leader for some of the Tourette Association group here locally in the Tampa Bay area. And then with the eating disorder, the same thing. I went on to some groups and really tried to learn as much as I could. I did a lot of personal research. We saw therapists and nutritionists and all kinds of stuff. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about just human nature and things that people go through. And support was really big for me.
Right. And I love that you share that part of it because I think, everyone, when they're in that isolation, they think they're the only one. They feel like an island. And to see that, even though as hard as it may be, by reaching out and forming those connections, and even in your case, turning it into advocacy and a strength and building for others. But definitely that connection part to begin with is where you find that strength, is where you kind of break down the isolation and the aloneness so that you can then become stronger, and reaching out is such a strength. And so I definitely commend you, for sharing that story, because I want women to definitely hear that this is how we get through it. This is what connects us, and this is how we become stronger. So thank you for sharing that. But definitely you have done such an amazing thing with such hard things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It didn't feel like it.
It
It,
doesn't sometimes.
yeah, I want people to know, it doesn't feel like it when you're in the moment. That I guess that's why they call it the messy middle, because when you're in the middle of it, it does feel so messy, and it just feels like you're just not, you don't necessarily feel like you're in the place that you should be in.
Mhm.
And but the more I researched and the more I advocated and the more I went into that, the more I really found purpose in it, the more I found value in talking to people about it and sharing the experience with other people and helping them navigate through Tourette syndrome and OCD and sensory issues and all of the sort of comorbidities or coexisting conditions that go along with that. And same with my daughter. The more I was able to help other people who were walking that same path. So yeah, definitely some good things came out of it. I learned firsthand what depression was. I will tell you this, growing up, I have family members that suffered with depression, and I had this sort of preconceived notion in my mind that because I knew what depression looked like, that I could avoid it and that I would
Mhm.
recognize it and it would not happen to me. And then when it happened to me, I was like, wait a minute, is this depression? Am I really experiencing this? Going through that it was horrific, if I'm going to be honest. It was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. But on the flip side of that, it was also one of the things that I feel like in my life was sort of one of the most, sort of like an awakening, if you will. It was one of the greatest awakenings I had at the same time. So it's a weird combination because you think, how can you be depressed and so awake at the same time because you feel so numb and disconnected from everything? But there was this huge awakening that came with that for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. So now that you're in this place, you've, taken these things. I know your kids have gotten through some of these things. It's been several years. So now what do you do for you? One thing we all kind of look at is everyone's busy doing all these things. We're managing other people's things. We're taking care of everybody else, but how are you still taking care of yourself? Because I think that's
Yeah.
important to hear.
What a great question. So it's extremely important to hear that. So initially, I was not great about self-care.
Hmm.
And that was one of the awakenings that I had during that depression was stepping outside of all of that, stepping outside of the mom role, of the caregiver role, of the wife role, of, part-time job that I had, and all of these other things, right? All of these things these titles that we carry. And what I learned was that it was important for me to take time out for myself to be the best version of who I could be for my family. And so what I started doing was I started getting like self-help books that were really interesting to me, and workbooks, and even just like random books that I just wanted to read for fun. And I would go off to the beach. I live in Florida, so there's water,
Yeah.
within 30 minutes of anywhere. And I would go to the beach, and I would go to local parks, and I would just go off by myself. And that was something,
Hmm.
Daniela, that you would think would be like, this shouldn't be a big deal, right? Like you just take an hour or two, take a couple hours and go off by yourself. But for me, it was really hard. It was really hard because I felt like the world was going to fall down
Yeah.
if I left. And so doing those things was so invigorating, and it was so motivating for me. And it also gave me time to really reflect and learn about myself.
Hmm.
And I also did some really fun things, like my one of my best girlfriends, we've pretty much have grown up together. We've known each other since we were 7. We every other month we started taking like a night or a weekend, and we would just go off somewhere, even if it was like a local, like just going to downtown, going to eat wherever we wanted to eat, and walking around and just hanging out. So we did some really fun things. I took some little trips and just really focused on myself, and that was really, really rewarding.
Right. And I love that you share the variety of things. It's not just one thing, the fact that the kind of stacking of you were out in nature and you were reading and you were like disconnecting and self-reflecting, which, like you said, we don't always take the time to do. We keep our phone near us in case somebody needs us, or we stay on social media. And I think taking that alone time and getting comfortable with ourselves and our thoughts and getting to know them is important, as well as connecting with your girlfriend and even finding adventures in your own hometown. Sometimes you don't have to travel far, but just kind of finding those new places near you, new situations. They do have that property of somehow like it's still taking a quote risk to do something new. And so I love that you're kind of integrating so many different things as part of your self-care and seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah, one of the things I would add to that too is, one of the lessons that I learned outside of me needing to, take time for myself, that self-care isn't selfish, it's
Mm-hmm.
essential. If you can't do something for yourself, how can you show up 100% for anybody else? We need that time. And another thing that I know that this is just one of those things that I hate to say it, but it's probably something that's going to continue to cycle for me because I'm just not good at it, but
Yeah.
letting go of the expectations, letting go of the what ifs, letting go of all of those things that we thought we were supposed to do, the shoulds, should have, you should be, all of that stuff. I had to throw it by the wayside for
Mm-hmm.
quite a while. But I fought with it. I wrestled with it. Like I didn't want to let it go, Daniela. I like really
Yeah.
wanted to hold on to my control, and that was
I think
something
it's
that
some of
was.
what defines us sometimes too, which makes it hard to let it go. Because then we're like, well, who are we if we're not, cooking, cleaning, or doing all these shoulds?
Yes, yes. So there's a lot of self-worth I found that is tied up in the shoulds and in
Mm-hmm.
the control aspect. And so that was really freeing for me when I had this like epiphany that, hey, I can let some of this stuff go. I don't have to carry it around anymore. And guess what? The world didn't fall apart, and my kids are still alive, and they still figured out what to eat for dinner. And so
Yeah.
that was really rewarding too.
I love that you share that, because this is such a hard part in so many women's journey, is this last part of, letting go of the shoulds and kind of creating that space for themselves. And so I love that you share, it's hard, but it's okay. And things do still, work themselves out in their own way, even if it wasn't how you expected it to be. So I love that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Now that you're kind of on the other side, I always feel like gratitude is a huge part of self-care as well. Being able to have that appreciation for things, finds it can help us focus on what's good, so that we're not always looking at the things that didn't work out, or, the struggles that we've had and staying stuck in those negative places. So what would you say are some of your like top 3 gratitudes that have helped
Good,
you get here?
good points. Good points. Yeah, gratitude is huge. So I pretty much try to start every morning, and I did this even when I was in. It was like one of the things I had to push myself to do. But even when I was in more of that depressive state, every morning I would wake up and I would just do at least one thing of gratitude. I would stop. I would sit up in my bed and I would sort of like meditate or pray, and I would say at least one thing every day that I was grateful for. And I tried to sort of switch it up a little bit. So one day it could be maybe something spiritually that I was grateful for. And another day it might be something like tangible, like my roof over my head, my car that I can drive. And then other days it would be something completely different, like maybe a life lesson or, something else random that might have come to me. But I tried to sort of, instead of just saying the same thing over and over again or being grateful for the same things over and over again, I tried to kind of switch it up with different categories almost. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No,
But
absolutely.
and I thought if I could start with one thing every day, then I can start my day off knowing that there's something good, to look forward to. So that was really big for me. That's something I continue to try to do every day. I drive my son to school every morning because he goes to a little private school and they don't have a bus. And one of the things that we do is we take turns every morning saying a prayer. And so one morning it's his turn and one morning it's my turn. And in that prayer, we always include something that we're grateful for. So again, kind of goes along with what I was doing in
No,
the
but I
morning.
love how you're modeling that for your son too, because that is so important to teach our kids how to take care of themselves.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say third, the other way that I showed gratitude was by giving back. I love to serve in my community. So I
Mhm.
used to set aside, and this kind of goes along with self-care too. I would set aside one day every month and I would volunteer somewhere in the community. And so there were a couple of places that I used to rotate with because I just love what they stood for. One was a local soup kitchen, and the
Mhm.
other one is Metropolitan Ministries, which is in Tampa, and they house like people who are going through transition, women especially who are battered or going through transition, and they have all kinds of aspects that you can volunteer for there. So those were probably the main things that I did to focus on gratitude outside of maybe journaling and things like that.
That's great. That's great. So, Andrea, I'm going to have all your links in the show notes, but if you could just tell people where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Open Up and Speak. You can
Mhm.
find me on Facebook, under my regular name, which is not Open Up and Speak. It's Andrea Cosmides Veasey, and that's a Greek maiden name. So it's
Oh, nice.
Cosmides, and then my last name Veasey, Veasey. I do have an Open Up and Speak group page that if you friend me on Facebook, I will invite you to. I try to post sort of thought provoking or just thoughtful questions each day for people to think about and participate in. And as far as my life coaching goes, I'm just in the process of getting a website up. So I don't have a website up yet, but I will have. I just bought a business name for my practice and for the massage therapy, and it's going to be called Gemini Touch of Wellness LLC. So you will see that eventually.
That's awesome. So I encourage you guys, please connect with Andrea. It's a great place to start to share your stories, be connected, be stronger, as well as, like I said, the links will be in the show notes. So thank you so much, Andrea. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Danielle. It was so great to connect with you again.
Yeah.
And yeah, for anybody who's out there that wants to reach out to me, I'm very open. So reach out anytime. Thank you again, Daniela.
Thanks so much again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know any questions or comments that you have. Also, if you can please leave an Apple 5-star review so that this episode can be shared with more women. There's 2 quotes that I love. Alone we may be strong, but together we are stronger, as well as when women support each other, incredible things happen. So let's be stronger and incredible together, as well as maybe just have some fun along the way. Thanks so much and talk to you soon. Bye.